Welcome back, everybody. I know a lot of people have been asking me for this one, so here it is. I'm going to be talking about Rate Your Music's best progressive rock albums of all time. And I wanted to do the top 50, but the way that they've laid out their pages, we're going for the top 80. Now, for those of you that don't know, Rate Your Music is a kind of like a user base. Music website, very similar to like Goodreads or Ravelry. Goodreads for books, Ravelry's for knitting, but it allows you to kind of like catalog your own music, rate music, and that type of stuff. So it's a user base kind of an idea. They're the ones that provide the ratings. So it's like a massive conglomeration. And so think of like the Prog Archives in that sense. I never really got into Rate Your Music, if I'm being perfectly honest. I don't know. There was just something about it that didn't quite jive with me. Maybe it was the interface. Maybe it was like the user base. But yeah, I found myself more often just going to the Prog Archives. So because of that, this is a list of their like amalgamation of all the progressive rock albums, any album that has the progressive rock subgenre on it. And you can even see here, right? Like the Chris Squire one is just straight up progressive rock, and the subgenre is symphonic prog. Banco, you've got symphonic prog and then progressive rock and hard rock on it. So there's like a lot of like really, really tasty. And as a librarian, I really like the metadata and the tags on it. It really allows you to like really dive down into the actual meat and potatoes there. Anyway, I've been talking for like 2 straight minutes, and I know you guys just want to know the ratings of these guys, and you're going to get my reactions to it. So unlike a lot of the lists that I've looking at with, you know, the best progressive rock albums, where it's, you know, compiled by one person or two or three people, this is a user base algorithm. This is a user base conglomeration like Metacritic or something like that, like Rotten Tomatoes, right? So we got Chris Squire's Fish Out of Water at number 80 and Banco, their self-titled work, at number 79. Both great albums. I love Chris Squire's Fish Out of Water. I think it's maybe my second favorite of the solo string of albums that the Yes community did back in the like mid 70s. You know, you had this one, you had John Anderson's Sun Hollow, you had Steve Howe's solo record, Bill Bruford, and obviously, you know, Rick Wakeman. But yeah, so let's scroll on up. Number 78 is one that we've seen on the Prog website, the Prog Archives. Sing to God from Cardiacs. Great album. You know, some really, really great late prog. Love it. 77, Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. Good to see that on here. I listened to it during the Halloween season because it's very like Halloweeny. Love the bass lines on it. I love how Jeff Wayne was like really like doing a very good job of blending almost like this disco approach, this very accessible style of progressive rock in the late 70s. Love it, like a full-on orchestra. Beautiful masterclass in that sense. We have Can, Space Shanty at 76. Porcupine Tree, one of my favorites, Stupid Dream. I think that it gets overlooked quite often. Renaissance, Turn of the Cards. Yeah. Here's one that I'm not quite sure of. Darwin from Banco. Again, I know I need to get into the Italian progressive rock stuff. Yeah. Jethro Tull, Song of the Wood. Yeah, makes sense. Another PFM. Yeah, that's good on there. Another PFM, a back-to-back stint. And it's interesting because I always figured that Per un Amico is much more of a popular album. I think more people know about that one than the follow-up, or I think it might be the follow-up. I can't really recall which order these guys were in, of Satora di un minuto. I think that's like something in a minute. Another Renaissance, The Ashes Are Burning. My second favorite from Renaissance. Really beautiful, haunting vocals in that one. Then we're coming into Visions from, I don't know this one. This is a space rock, jazz rock outfit. Might have to check that one out. Marillion, Clutching at Straws. Yeah, great album. The last one from Fish. Oh, good. We finally have some Uriah Heep. I don't think we had Uriah Heep in any of the other ones. Now, of course, we're on the 66, so, pretty high up, but this is one of my favorite Uriah Heeps. It has one of my favorite songs of there. It's like November, something of November. Great album. Great album. Porcupine Tree, yeah, Lightbulb Sun, the follow-up from Stupid Dream. I know that this is Spectrum Pulses, one of his favorite, Mark from Spectrum Pulse, one of his favorite albums from Porcupine Tree. So good to see that one. I've heard about this one from Musio Rosebach. I've heard many things about this album, but I haven't actually checked it out. And I'm sure so many people in the comments will be like, oh, you got to check that out. Las Jarvis, I don't know about that one. Okay, one that's pretty high up on this list. Just a second. I had to sneeze. These things, you get all the good stuff. You get my sneezes, you get my ramblings, you get my stuffly nose. A Trick of the Tail. I'm shocked to see that it is so high up on this list. I would have put this well within the top 25 rather than be like on this side of the top 50. Same with In a Glass House. Sorry. One of my favorite Gentle Giant albums, although I will admit, the first half of this album is far, far better than the second half. The second half of the album is, it's fine. It's fine. The last song on the first half is just so good. And another Gentle Giant. Very interesting that we've already had two albums kind of back to back from the same artist. Acquiring the Taste. This is one of my comfort albums. This is an album that I will listen to when I need a good, comfort, a nice little hug. This is what I listen to in that sense. A third Gentle Giant, The Power and the Glory. I know a lot of people love this album. I'm not a huge fan of this album. I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan of it. There are some moments on here that I do like playing the game is really fun, but I don't know. I'm not a really big fan of this album like a lot of other people are. We're coming into my second favorite album from Gentle Giant, Octopus. Wow. Okay. Very interesting that this one is, again, we've got 4 Gentle Giant albums back to back. And it's a very interesting order as well. I'm just going to blow my nose. Otherwise, I'm going to sound like an elephant for a little bit. Okay, and we're back. So yeah, I wonder if the next one's going to be nope, we've got Rush 2112. I have a full-on almost video essay about this album that I'm excited to share with you guys. I'm just in the writing stages of it right now, but get ready. Yeah, this album is good. Not my favorite Rush album, but I know a lot of people think that it's their... I shouldn't say that. A lot of people love this album, and I am one that loves this album, but I think that they do better stuff a little further on in their career. The first instance of Zool with Magma. Good to see some KA on here from Magma. Mothers of Invention, Uncle Meat. I'm not sure I'm familiar with this one. Huh. Interesting. I don't know this one either. T2. It'll all work out in Boomland. Interesting. I don't know that one. Okay, Days of Future Past from the Moody Blues. I love this album. This is one of my favorite Moody Blues album. I'm one of those people that I don't necessarily consider the Moody Blues as a progressive rock album, like a progressive rock band. They're really, really good, and I really, really do love a lot of their stuff, but I always felt like they were more of like a proto-prog in the same vein that Uriah Heep or Deep Purple or even like early Pink Floyd, where it wasn't quite progressive rock, but you can see the seeds of progressive rock being laid out into the field that will then grow into what we know as progressive rock. But that's just my take, and I know that I'm kind of in the minority with that one. Still fantastic and beautiful album in that sense. Another one from Los Jarvis. I'm not familiar with this one, so I might have to go in and research these guys. Mothers of Invention, Overnight Sensation. This one I do know. That's a fun record. Very, very fun. Okay, we're into the top 50 now. So this is kind of where I wanted to start, and we're like, 10 minutes in. But that's okay. That's okay. I have a feeling this is going to be a longer video, so I hope you guys will strap in for this. So yeah, I'm not familiar with this group. Wow, Fear of a Blank Planet at number 49. I am almost shocked to see this one so high up on the list. I would have expected this to be, again, within the top 25, not within the top, 50. Very interesting, that one. Okay, Caravan. I know I need to get into the Canterbury scene because, outside of, I think, Caravan's Girls Who Go Plump in the Night, and the Pink album. I don't think I've really listened to any Canterbury scene, but yeah, Caravan, I've heard very, very good things. I'm not even sure about this one. I'm sorry guys, I don't know that one. But Supertramp, Crime of the Century, beautiful, great stuff. Again, I'm still on the fence whether or not I consider Supertramp a full-fledged progressive rock band, but they definitely use prog techniques, especially on this one, with tracks like the title track, Crime of the Century, and Rudy. But I love this album. This is my favorite album from them, so absolutely deserves to be on here. Some Wishbone Ash, yeah, good to see them on here. I can't really say no about that. Some really nice folk sounding stuff. Same with Camel and the Snow Goose. Camel's Snow Goose and Moon Madness always vie for my favorite album from Camel. Really good stuff there. I don't know this one. I've never seen this one before. But yeah, okay, there you go. That one. Omadon from Mike Oldfield. Yep. My second favorite album. I've recently kind of come to terms with the fact that I like Return to Omadon more than the original. So yeah, love Omadon, second favorite next to Return to Omadon. So yeah. Our third entry for Porcupine Tree with Deadwing. I like Deadwing, but as I've mentioned within my video that I did with Spectrum Pulse, it's a little bit of a hit and miss for me. Like, there are tracks on here that I love, but it is a little bit of a mixed grab bag. There are some tracks on here that I feel just don't quite work for me, but I know people really do love this album, and I think my friend Matt O'Leary, this is like his favorite Porcupine Tree album, and like I totally understand. Like, it's a great album. We got the ad. Okay, so now we're going to page 1. And we're going to slide all the way down so we don't get spoiled. We already saw number 1. We're going to let the page kind of catch up with itself. Sorry, folks. We are now into the top 40. So, top 40 with... I almost said Rush's Relayered. Yes's Relayered album. Love this record. Love this record. I do wish that Patrick Moraz stayed on for one more album before the band put it out, going for the one, just to hear what else he could do with the band on the keyboards. But love this album. It's one of the more unique albums in the Yes catalog. And I do feel it gets overlooked by the masses. In Absentia from Porcupine Tree. Again, another Porcupine Tree album that I'm kind of hit and miss with. Again, certain tracks on here hit very, very hard. But there are other tracks that I'm like, I can kind of take it or leave it. But I can understand those who love this album. I totally get it. Okay, we got a Mood Madness from Camel. Again, it flip-flops back and forth between this one and Snow Goose, which one I like more. It will be interesting to see if Mirage is on here, because I know that Mirage usually gets a little bit of a higher rank on here, but yeah, we'll see. Ooh, it's good to see a newer one, Cavaclade from Black Midi. Glad to see this one on here. This album is one that I initially was a little bit cool on. Wasn't a big fan of it, but now that, I've had about a year to really digest, well, over a year. This was released in May of 2021. I've really grown to appreciate and love this album. I think Hellfire might be a little bit better, so we'll see if it's higher up on here, but so glad to see some new prog on here. Very, very glad to see that. Okay, we've got Nursery Crimes. What can we say about that? The introductory of Steve Hackett and Phil Collins to the band. Knocked it out of the park. Absolutely knocked it out of the park. One of my favorite Van de Graaff albums, Still Life. It always kind of goes, well, I should say Pawn Hearts is my absolute favorite. My absolute favorite from them. Still Life is really close to it. Really love what they did with Still Life. My favorite Renaissance album, Scheherazade and Other Stories. Yeah, love this album. It's lots of fun. Excuse me. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, Permanent Waves from Rush. Yeah, this is another great one. Spirit of the Radio on here, Natural Science and Jacob's Ladder. Great stuff on here. Really, really great stuff. Yeah, not my favorite from Rush, but really great. My favorite album from the Mars Volta. Interesting. Now, I'm sure that Deloused will probably be a little bit higher, but it'll be interesting to see if we have any other inductees of the Mars Volta in here, like if Amputexture or Octahedron will be on here. But yeah, love Francis Lemieux. It's so good if you want some like more heavy hitting art rock. Really, really good stuff on there. Okay, the first inductee of Opeth with Damnation. Yeah, this was their scaled back, more acoustic album. We don't have any of the growls. We don't have any of the really intense stuff. It's all very melodramatic, all very somber stuff, but oh, is it haunting. Probably their most haunting one. And my second favorite album from Rush, Farewell to Kings. Love this album with Xanadu on it, Cygnus X1, closing it off, Closer to the Heart being on here. Just so good. So friggin' good. Yeah, there's Deloused. Yeah, I knew he wasn't too far behind. The debut album from Mars Volta. Great, great stuff on there. H to He from Vandergraaf. Outside of Killers, I'm not a big fan of this. I think what really put this one over the top was how young this album is in terms of like coming out. Like this was 1970, right? So nobody else was really doing music like this. And that's, I think, part of the reason why it got a lot of critical acclaim. So one size fits all from Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. Can't go wrong with that one. A great album. The Yes album. Yep. One of my favorites. Love Perpetual Change. Love, Yours Is No Disgrace. And, oh shoot, why is the name escaping me? The big one, the one that finishes side one. Anyway, it'll come to me. Love this album. God Bluff, yeah, my third favorite album from Vandergraaf. Love Sleepwalkers. The finishing track from this album, so good. And now we're into the top 25. We're on the top 25 now with In the Land of Grey and Pink from Caravan. Again, the only other Caravan album that I've heard of. Very fun. And we've got The Soft Machine with Third. I know a lot of people love this album. And again, I really need to get into Soft Machine. I'm dragging my feet on that one. Hemispheres. Oh, it's blocked probably because of the butt. My favorite Rush album. Love this album. The first side being the continuation of Cygnus X1 with Hemispheres. And then the second side with The Trees and the final track I can never pronounce. So good. Probably my favorite instrumental piece from Rush is that last track off of this album. So freaking good. Okay, I'm not familiar with this one. I've seen it around, but I'm not familiar with that one. My favorite Vandergraaf album. Love it. We're in the top 20 now. Coming into Aqualung. Yep, great stuff. One of Jethro Tull's great albums, and the one that people kept saying, "Oh, Jethro Tull's a prog piece now." They're doing progressive rock tracks, and Ian Anderson was like, "Oh, you think that? Well, we're going to write Thick as a Brick as like a satire of that," and then it turned out to be one of their best albums ever. Great stuff on that one. Rush's Moving Pictures. I can understand this. Again, not necessarily my favorite. I think the second side, it's not quite as good as the first side. First side we've got Tom Sawyer. No, I think Tom Sawyer starts the second side. But yeah, we've got YYZ. Got some like very well notable. Or maybe the Tom Sawyer is on the first side. Maybe I'm thinking of the Camera Eye. Camera Eye, I think, starts the second side. Anyway, great stuff on this one. Great stuff. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway at number 17. Absolutely. This is one of the few albums that I think have been on like most of the best progressive rock albums so far. And this is, I think, the second album from Genesis that we've seen. We've had a pretty big gap between this and Nursery Crimes. Oh, no, there was Trick of the Tail. There's Mirage. Okay. Yeah, number 16. That's good. I do not know this one. This is one that I am not familiar with. Invisible. Huh. Okay. Now we're getting into Foxtrot. Yeah, the follow-up of Nursery Crimes with Supper's Ready. Fragile on there. The first album without Tony Keys on keyboard, with Rick Wakeman taking his space. There we go. Hellfire. Absolutely love this album. This is an album that keeps giving back to me. The more I listen to it, the more I love it. So glad to see some new prog on here. Very glad to see that one. King Crimson Discipline. I know a lot of people love this one. It's just not for me. I'm not a big fan of this one. I don't really like the new wave, like synth wave, more math rock, more jazz rock stuff that they were doing on this one. Just wasn't quite for me. Thick as Brick, number 10. We're in the top 10 now. Interesting that this is number 10, as I know a lot of people consider this as number 1. So I'm really interested to see what the top 10 look like now. Selling England, which I would consider very, very close to number 1. I'd put this within the top 5. So it's very interesting to see Selling England at number 9. Metal at number 8. Okay, not my favorite Pink Floyd. I've got a handful of Pink Floyd albums that I like more. And interesting, I think this is the first introduction. I think this is the only Pink Floyd album that we've had so far. So it'll be very interesting to see where some of the other Pink Floyd albums are. Lark's Tongue. Again, not my favorite. I'm not as much of a fan of the more, improvisation stuff that they were doing with Lark's Tongue and Bible Black. I like when they tightened their songs up a little bit more within like Red. But still, you can't say no to Lark's Tongue and Aspect Part 2. Yeah, great stuff. Interesting that Close to the Edge is at number 6. Again, this is one that I would have in like top 5, but it's number 6. Okay. Animals at number 5. Yeah, I can understand that. I understand that. That's one of my favorite. Again, it always kind of crosses between which one I like more between Pink Floyd, of Animals or Wish You Were Here, for my number 2 spot. Because we all know my number 1 spot is Atom Heart Mother. There's King Crimson Red. Yes, absolutely. I think that's a great spot for it. Dark Side of the Moon, I wouldn't necessarily have it this high. This is the first one within like the top 10 that I'm like, probably wouldn't have it that high. I love Dark Side of the Moon, but I think, other albums have kind of surpassed it since then. Number 2 is In the Court of the Crimson King. Absolutely. Absolutely. For me, this could very easily be number 1. It very easily could be number 1 for me. Love it. Absolutely love it. And then we already kind of spoiled ourselves with Wish You Were Here at number 1. Yeah, I mean, I can understand it. It is, again, it keeps going back and forth between Animals and Wish You Were Here. But the fact that this was like 1975 and, progressive rock at this point was starting to waver. It was starting to be a little bit shaky. I can understand it. Because, this was a very definitive statement, so there you go. Yeah, number 1, again, I think that this one and the Prog Archives does a much better way of summarizing progressive rock. I don't know, I still don't 100% agree with it, but I mean, if I 100% agreed with it, it would be my list. There's a few things that I would probably sprinkle here and there. I probably would put a little bit more of the modern prog on here, because there wasn't any Transatlantic, there wasn't any Spock's Beard, there wasn't any Flower Kings, there wasn't any Dream Theater, there wasn't any Ayreon. I'm trying to think of like some of those big staple progressive rock stuff that we had post 90s. The only Marillion album we had was Clutching at Straws, which is a real shame. Like, there was no Marbles, there was no Script for a Jester's Tear, no Misplaced Childhood, no Afraid of Sunlight. There was very little from the neo-prog, like no IQ, no Arena, no Frost. That was a little bit of a shame on that case. The only Opeth that we had on here was Damnation. There was no Still Life, which Still Life had been on a couple of them. There was no Blackwater Park, and Blackwater Park, I believe, was on the Prog Archives. They didn't seem to really like metal all that much, like the prog metal. Like, no Symphony X, no Haken on here. I can at least understand if there was no like Leprous, but that's another really big one that's come out within the past 10 years. Yeah, so like for me, it's more of what they didn't include rather than what they did include on here. And we even went back to like the 80s, like the top 80s. So yeah, very interesting of like what they didn't include on here. So yeah, very interesting that they mainly mainly stick to like the 70s prog, and there wasn't a whole lot outside of, as I mentioned, Black Midi with Hellfire and Cavalcade. But even within the newer stuff like No Black Country, New Road, there wasn't a whole lot of modern prog from, like, I'm thinking of like Gazpacho wasn't on here. There wasn't anything from Anathema or Atma on here. Yeah, yeah, it seems like they favored the 70s prog, which, I mean, sure. But yeah. Anyway, there you go. There's Rate Your Music's top 80 progressive rock albums of all time. What do you guys think about this list? Do you agree with it? What are some albums that you would have had on here? What are some albums that you don't agree with on here? What are some albums that are on this list that I need to check out? Because that's one common thread that I've had through all these reaction videos is, oh, you need to listen to this album. So there you go. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. We're going to be back next Friday with another reaction video. Maybe I'll have that Rush 2112 video essay done by then. We'll see. But until then, thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.